Luckily for me, I grew up in a time where if you were a kid with a computer, you had a wealth of virtual kid spaces at your fingertips. If you can name a kid's website, there's a good chance I played on it at least once, and a good chance that a future video about it is written in the stars. To understand what we'll be talking about today, you first need to understand the climate of kids' online games in 2010. The big three networks, Disney Channel, Cartoon Network, and Nickelodeon, all have some kind of attachment to a third party's kids' website, whether that be through a purchase or a partnership. Disney had just bought Club Penguin in 2007, bringing it to its peak usership and continuing to see those numbers into 2010. Cartoon Network is pushing ads for Movie Star Planet, and there's rumors that they owned it for a brief period, but every snapshot I viewed of it on the Wayback Machine had its copyright credited to Movie Star Planet APS, so I'm not sure that this is true. As for Nickelodeon, their parent company Viacom had bought Neopets in 2005, giving it the much-needed fuel required to contribute to the online kids game Wildfire. However, the recent years had been the era of the kids MMO, and while Neopets had some of the elements of an MMO, such as basic story, games, basic player customization, and message boards, it lacked the multiplayer feeling of its competitors and played more like a pet care game. Its rivals, even including games like Free Realms and Wizard 101, had the leg up on Neopets for the reason being that they held more features common to an MMO. Grand quests, chat systems, multiplayer games, deeper player customization, and relatively open worlds to explore. Neopets did make an effort to compete on their level with Neotopia, but that's another subject I could do another video on later, so I won't talk about it this time around. Nickelodeon was more quick to see the benefit of having their own MMO/virtual world under their own name. The internet is very vague about what does and doesn't count as a kid's MMO, so I think I'll just stick to calling Nick's case a virtual world. As early as 2004, Nickelodeon began production on a virtual world for them to slap some orange paint and slime on and call their own. A bare-bones open beta of this game was made available in November of 2006, and 5 months later, the beta was closed so Nickelodeon could process the data and feedback, announcing that well over 3 million players participated in it. Come January 30th of 2007, the game was completely opened under the name Nicktropolis. The game was accessed on the nick.com website as sort of an in-house game. Nicktropolis utilized 3D graphics and had many features to keep players entertained. The character creation system was very broad, allowing players to change their avatar or Nick self freely. New Neo pronoun just dropped. You could customize the build of your Nick self, your skin color, hairstyle and color, shirt, pants, and shoes all independently of each other. You were also given a room to hang out in and decorate. With the in-game currency, Nick Points, players could purchase furnishings for their room and otherwise remodel and recolor it. The interesting thing about this currency is that it could be earned all throughout the nick.com website, and wasn't limited only to Nicktropolis itself. The game's chat function was very limited to protect children playing. Only pre-approved words could be used, and no names could be entered in the chat. There were also multiple chatbots for players to interact with that were based on various Nicktoons. Nicktoons were also the basis for chat rooms and clubhouses on Nicktoons Boulevard, where your Nick self could explore iconic settings from Nick's many cartoons. The Nicktoons characters themselves were implied to all live here, which I say is the most fictional aspect of it all, because there's no way you can put that many cats and cat dogs in one city and expect them to all get along without questioning if they're actually the one who's a mutation. There were a lot of franchises they referenced in Nicktropolis, so here we go. I won't get into specifics, but Nicktoons Boulevard residents hailed from SpongeBob SquarePants, The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, Planet Sheen, for some reason, Danny Phantom, The Fairly OddParents, Invader Zim, Rugrats and All Grown Up, which how would that work? My Life as a Teenage Robot, The Ren and Stimpy Show, Tough Puppy, Cat Dog, Rocket Power, Hey Arnold, Robot and Monster, Ah Real Monsters, Back at the Barnyard, Rocko's Modern Life. This wiki entry says Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I know that can't be true because of the time frame, so I think it means the 2012 series. The Wild Thornberries, Blaze and the Monster Machines, Fanboy and Chum Chum, Cat Scratch, which I had to look up to remember what it was, Avatar The Last Airbender, The Legend of Korra, Chalk Zone, Paw Patrol, Dora the Explorer, Rabbids Invasion, and apparently 2 mystery shows according to this wiki entry. I honestly think this list might be confusing some of the shows that were featured in the redesign/reboot we'll be talking about, because I know from personal experience that a lot of these shows came after this change in 2010. Explorable locations in Nicktropolis included Bikini Bottom, the Krusty Krab, the Chum Bucket, Retroville, Dimsdale, Amity Park, the Barnyard, the Thornberries Convy, the Northern and Southern Water Tribes, the Fire Nation Capital, Ba Sing Se, which there is no war in, the air temples from all 4 cardinal directions, Tough Headquarters, Tommy Pickles' house, Chucky Finster's house, Phil and Lil's house, Angelica's house, why would you want to go there? The Chalk Zone, Rabbitland, and a few non-specific locations such as Nicktropolis Central Park, Nickelodeon Studios, the Town Hall, and the Nicktropolis Police Department for some reason. I don't know whether or not all the franchises had their own locations or if this list is just incomplete, but it is the only list I can find. Most locations had general stores where you could buy clothing and furniture specific to each show. Players could also visit the Teen Nick Point, themed after the show The Naked Brothers Band. Other chat rooms were based on limited time events, such as the Kids' Choice Awards. These rooms even allowed you to cast your vote in the awards show. There were various games you could play too, and I would think you'd get Nick points for playing these. Another feature was the fish ownership system. You could purchase a fish with Nick points from the aquarium in downtown Nicktropolis. You would feed and care for this fish as per usual, but there were also areas of the game that you could bring your fish into. This demo reel I'm referencing mentions an undersea volcano, lost ships, and castle ruins. The game saw incredible numbers, and so did Nickelodeon's pockets, as the game allowed them to advertise both their numerous shows and whatever third-party thing they ran ads for within the game. But by 2010, it was already beginning to show its age, and I think a good number of the cartoons they featured in it were over by then. Nicktropolis slowly began to close, with the option to become a new member disappearing from the interface. In May of 2010, the game was given a 2D facelift and renamed to The Club. This is the version I played on, and the version we'll be focusing on. There weren't very many changes, really, but the ones that were made were quite drastic and noticeable. The entire concept of the town of Nicktropolis was watered down to basically simply the chat rooms, and there was no real hub for navigation in that same sense. Alongside the chat rooms, there was a message board with less strict chat functions, although which had fairly strong moderation. Chat rooms were renamed to clubhouses. Clubhouses' themes still stayed based on the shows on the channel, however more of them were themed on the live shows like Big Time Rush and Victorious in the Star Lounge. The clubhouses also had more games and interactive features. For example, your avatar— oh yeah, no more Nick Self in this one. Boo. Your avatar could take pictures with Big Time Rush in the Star Lounge. Look how convincing that is. Shows that didn't get dedicated clubhouses would instead get dedicated stores, where you could buy clothes for your avatar. You earn club points— oh, they changed that too, by the way. They changed Nick points to club points. Maybe they changed more than I thought. You earn club points by playing games. One was a little trivia game like the one in Movie Star Planet that never formatted quite right. Other things they removed were the aquarium and chatbots. And thankfully the police station. Everybody liked that. This version of Nick's virtual world was taken to less well than the first iteration. Despite representing multiple series and even taking on collaborations with other companies such as Furby, there just wasn't as much to do or explore. The entire site was formatted in some weird Frankenstein's monster of Nicktropolis and Facebook. It had lost all its childlike whimsy, and you guys know how I appreciate some good whimsy. In September of 2014, Nick decided to update its entire website, and they decided that the club and its message boards just didn't fit the vision they had for the new site. The club was effectively dead, without there ever being a chance for players to gather their last screenshots, or take any more pictures with Kendall either. This also meant that all the user-created content in the message boards and comments would go unarchived. A few screenshots do still exist, along with a handful of gameplay videos, but otherwise, Nicktropolis' half-effort successor had succumbed to the growing pressures on networks to build up a relatable and functional web presence. As for Nicktropolis, it's seen better luck, as a good number of assets have been found and used to create a kind of skeleton version of its former glory. Unfortunately, the club hasn't had any of its content located in the same manner, and it's kinda looking like that'll never happen. But having hope for these things is always more help than not, and a lot is owed to the people who actively search for lost media like this. Hello, I do apologize for this being another little short video. I kinda have trouble writing about things that I only have to focus my attention on one thing about, especially if it's something that doesn't have a lot of documentation on it. I generally don't like to just go off the Lost Media Wiki and focus on one thing. I kinda like to break up my attention over, like, several things. I kinda don't like that my Lost Media videos are so short. I've seen other content creators in the Lost Media category that they're able to make these giant videos, and I just can't focus my attention so strongly on them for some reason. I think it just has to do with the fact that it is lost content and not all of it has been saved and documented. Only the memory of what it once was is present, and only that can be recorded. I do also like to focus my attention on things that aren't on the Lost Media Wiki, because those things are equally important to find as well. We shouldn't have to wait for recognition of something to go after it. We should be able to determine on our own that this is something that's lost, and we should focus attention on it, even if the biggest eyes in lost media aren't. I know I'm kind of going on a little tangent here, but that's something that's really important to me, and I'm also trying to make this video a little longer. I do think some of the club will be found at some point, and I hope that other users will come forward with some of their information regarding the topic. But for now, all we have is the very few people who are dedicating themselves to the search, and people who are putting in the time to rebuild them, such as Nicktropolis.